Puppies bred under careless conditions, such as puppy mills, where they are reared like livestock by irresponsible and ignorant breeders, are topical cases in point. Such puppies are often exposed to the most appalling conditions and cruel treatment. When they come into homes, they are already heavily burdened, exhibiting many of the following conditions: patterns of extreme hyperactivity. This is pretty well known. Intense, precocious aggressiveness. I've also seen that a lot. And fearfulness towards humans and other dogs. They're often prone to separation anxiety, orally fixated, like focusing on personal belongings like socks, t-shirts, and stuff like that. Coprophagios, which means they're more inclined to eat poop. And they are frequently difficult to potty train, to house train. With supportive training involving intense remedial socialization, graduated environmental exposure, and endless patience, such puppies can regain some degree of composure and develop into reasonably well-behaved, well-adjusted companion dogs. Even after undergoing the best training available, though, such puppies will never reach their full potential. So what the book is talking about is, no, it's a little bit broad the way it talked of it, but from experience, I can tell you what they're getting at. Okay, so I'm going to give you more details on what they mean by these conditions that they're talking about, by mistreatment. When you have breeders whose focus is, I want to sell all these puppies, and that's every breeder. But when their focus is, I just want to sell so that I can have my next breeding, so that I can sell them, so I can have my next breeding, so I can sell all these puppies, so that I can pay my bills, so that I can do this, that, and the other. When they're looking at breeding as a business, rather than they're doing this because they love the breed, this is a very obvious thing. If you've never dealt with a breeder that loves the breed, it's kind of hard to tell. But when you finally work with a breeder that actually likes the breed, okay, to them it's not just a business. You'll see how particular and how careful they are about talking to you about the possibility of you taking their dogs. That's what a careful, very committed breeder is. That's what they're like. The other breeders, which most people have dealt with, it's more business-like. It's more like, which one do you want? Do you want to pick one, right? It's very like transactional. They'll even go as far as either offering you a second dog from that same litter, which they should never do, or if you ask for the second dog, they'll right away tell you, yeah, you can definitely get two dogs from the same litter. And they're setting you up for failure when they do that. They don't really, again, they're not really putting a lot of care and thought into what they're doing. So the book is talking about these breeders, and the reason why these issues that it talked about happen is because of the following. When you have a breeder that to them this is just a business, they don't care about their dogs. They care just enough. They care just enough because they're protecting their investment, they're protecting their product. So they want to make sure that their puppies are not dying. Okay, it's completely understandable. They want to take care of them. That doesn't mean they're responsible. All that means is they're just going to give it the minimal care. They'll put them all in a crate. This is something that happens. They'll shove them all in a crate. And of course, they're spending several hours in this crate, right? The puppies, the litter, will spend several hours in that crate. They're pissing and pooping, right? Pissing and shedding on top of each other, which now it's setting them up for failure, because when a puppy's that young and they're living in their own filth, they adjust to it and they get very comfortable with it. How that affects you as the owner is when that puppy comes to you, this puppy already goes, it's not a big deal. I can piss all over the place. I can sit on it, I can sleep on it, I can poop right here, I can lay right on it. It's not a big deal, because when they were little, in the litter, right, when they were small, these breeders, they just shoved them in a crate, and again, they were just stepping on each other, pissing on each other, and they probably did that for several weeks, right? Yes, they came out to stretch their legs, they came out to feed on mom, they came out to play a little bit, but then the rest of the time they're just shoved in this box on top of each other. And some breeders are even worse than that. Some breeders will not even take the puppies out of this box. They're just basically there the entire time with very minimal exercise, very minimal exposure. So these puppies are not even coming out at all. And so when they get sold, then they'll grab one, they'll ship it, or they'll bring it to you. They'll do the transaction. But until then, these puppies are basically living in a box. How that affects you as the owner, again, now you're getting a puppy that has not been exposed to the world. Okay, all they know is, crap, I'm getting stepped on, pissed on, shit on, and this is my life, until they go to you. Now, when they go to you, they're going to see different things that they've never seen, right? They're going to be exposed to stresses that they've never been exposed to. And now, of course, they're freaking out. This is why they become fearful. They can become more easily aroused by the environment. They can become aggressive because, again, they just have not had the chance to develop the tolerance for all these things, right? And difficult to potty train because, again, these guys are used to pissing and shitting right where they're standing. So when you take them home, well, your home is just now another big bathroom. So it's challenging, right? They haven't had that imprinting of, in our space, we're clean, we make our mess, we relieve ourselves out there. They have not had the chance to do that because the breeders were irresponsible, they didn't care. It was just a transaction for them. So this is why you have these issues. The separation anxiety, because again, these guys have just been around each other, around their litter mates the entire time. So they've not had time to explore, be by themselves, hang out by themselves, right? And they just have not, again, they've not been exposed to stresses. So when they go to you and you're now leaving them alone, that's a stress that they've not been exposed to. So all of these things just create issues. Now, there is such a thing as temperament overriding their imprinting. So you could have, for instance, a dog that came from a litter that is just temperament, character-wise, amazing, solid. Okay, this dog is freaking like bold, powerful, very confident dog. This dog might be that because of the result of its own unique individual character. It might not have had anything to do with its beginning, its first 6 weeks of life. It might have been exposed to awful conditions as a puppy, but then later you realize these dogs are very well adjusted. It's because a lot of times the character, okay, what that individual is like, what it came with to this world, that sometimes overrides the conditions that they were born in and raised in for the first 6 weeks. Sometimes it's the other way around. Sometimes you'll have dogs that came from good breeders, but you have one individual that their character is not that great. So they're a little bit more fearful than others, than the other litter mates. They're a little bit more insecure, a little bit more reserved, a little bit more inhibited. And so because they're a little bit more fearful, sometimes we go, oh man, maybe they were abused. And a lot of times with good breeders, that's not always the case, right? A lot of times with good breeders, that is, right? The good breeders will do everything they can. They'll do everything proper. They'll do the socialization, the exposure. These puppies are getting lots of good experiences the first 6 weeks of their lives. The breeder's doing everything right. They're responsible. But then you'll have one individual in that litter that just is not quite up to par with the other dogs, right? With the other litter mates. They're more fearful. And then what's happening there is their character, their temperament, their individualness about them overrides all the wonderful experiences they had in the first 6 weeks of their lives. So essentially, this part of the book, on chapter 2, goes into more detail, but basically it's talking about the various developmental stages from the time they're born to the several weeks. It talks about the 2 socialization periods, which is the first socialization period, which is when they're learning how to be dogs with their littermates and their mom, and then the second socialization period, which is when they're learning how to be dogs in a domestic environment, living with their owners. So a little bit more detail into that as the chapter moves along, and I'm going to be updating you on more as I read more of this. If you're liking this video, if you're liking the breakdown that I'm making on this particular book, go to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the YouTube channel, Dog Training is My Passion. Look for the playlist named Applied Dog Behavior and Training, and follow along. I'm doing a breakdown of every chapter as I'm reading it along. I'm making this primarily for me, but you're more than welcome to tag along as I read this book. It's an excellent book. Share the video or the playlist if you're enjoying it, if you feel like somebody would benefit from this.